Welcome to People Love Process. In the midst of accelerated timelines, quick turnarounds, and frankly, workflow habits, we can easily miss helpful and time-saving methods. Whenever I get files from another designer or an agency, I'm surprised how often I find no use of global colors or lighter hues of a base color that are technically a whole new color instead of using a tint. So this movie will focus on global colors, how to create them, and why you should use them as a default when creating and managing colors in Adobe Illustrator. We're also going to go over creating and using tints as well. So let's get started. Once again, this is going to be all about global colors, and we're also going to cover tints as well. So global colors and tints. Now, you might not be familiar with either of these terms, but I think after you watch this, you're going to understand why you should be using them and how they'll benefit your creative process. So the first project I want to show you was a real world project, and this is the thumbnails that I did for it. And by the way, because these were so geometric, I didn't even bother redrawing them. This is all I did in order to create art like this. So all we're going to do is we're going to walk you through the process of using global colors and why specifically it's important to use global colors. So we need to open up our swatches palette, and I have it set up a little differently. Normally I have it set to show medium thumbnail view, but I'm using the list view because it's going to give us some information on things you need to know, and that's why I'm using it here. And I pulled it out because it's going to become pretty large with some of the things we're going to be doing. But as I'm working on this project for a client, I want to, by the way, they're a cycling client and they make custom jerseys. And this is an icon for kind of inspecting those jerseys. And at a certain point, I wasn't sure what color I was going to use for the brand color. I originally was using kind of this muted tangerine, but I thought maybe I could try something else. And so I wanted to go in and change this tangerine color. But as it is right now, it's a non-global color. And when I say non-global, notice these other swatches below this brand color, non-global, have all of these right-hand corner triangles. That means it's a global color. This one doesn't have that. So if I just click in to this and I go, I want to switch this. So instead of 65 and 80 to get this tangerine color, I want it more to be kind of a warm yellow. So if we go in here and we go to 30 here, and then I punch up the value to yellow here, I like that, and we're going to go ahead and click it, but it doesn't change the colors that color we already used. These are still that old color, even though that swatch is no longer in the swatches panel. That's because we didn't make it a global color. So that's unfortunate because I want to create some other elements, but I want it to be a tint of what the global color is. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back here and we'll go Command Z to get back here. I'm going to go ahead and click global, go into it and click global before I change any of these colors and click OK. Now we're going to have to select all the elements. And by the way, I could select one of these elements and I could go Option F1 and it would select everything filled with that color because I set up a keyboard shortcut for exactly this purpose. When something isn't a global color and I want to select all those fills really quick, it won't select strokes, but if you go under Select and you go into Same and you go to Fill Color, notice I have Option F1. That's what I used. I also have Option F2 to select same stroke color for strokes. But now that I have that, I can reapply this fill from what it was, a non-global, to now the global color orange. And now I'll just go in, I'll select the shapes that make up, which represents he's inspecting the thread count on the garment. And we're going to change that stroke to the global tangerine color we have now. And because I did this, it's going to make that change that wouldn't happen before super easy. I don't have to touch the art. This is the benefit of using it. I can just click on this, go into this color. We want to change this to a warm yellow. I can go like that. You can see with live color in Illustrator now, it's changing everything over here. And I can click, OK, I'm done. That's the benefit of using global color. It makes that type of usage really, really, really easy. So let's go ahead and take a look at one more thing. I decided I wanted to create some tints here. Well, if I'm using a non-global color, let's say I go up here to the colors and I click on this and I mix a new color because I'm starting to think maybe it should be a kind of a branded green instead of the yellow I created. So if I go up here and I start mixing a color, maybe I like that color, and I can just drag this over into the color palette and drop it. And I want to first try, well, maybe if I select this and I color it green, how do I tint that? Well, you can't because it's non-global color. And that's why you want to use a global color, because as soon as you select something and you color it a global color, like the global color we established, over here in the color palette, you'll get a T showing up with the slider bar. And this is tint. So you can take this color. Right now it's 100% value of what's in the swatches panel, but we can bring this all the way down. And I want this to be 15% tint. I'm going to cut it, select our shapes here, paste behind, Command B to get that tint in there. I'm going to select this one. We'll sample the other tint we had here. And all of this is going to go behind these shapes as well. So that's how I would use the tinting. Now, in this case, I might decide, you know what, that color I came up with is a little too light, especially when it's in the tint. So I could go back into here and adjust this and add a little more warmth. Maybe I want a little more orange, not tangerine. I go like this and boom, everything changes. That's why you want to do it. And this is a pretty simple design, so it's not that big a deal to select things in a design this simple. But if you look at all the final art for this project, I eventually tried green. I said, I think I like that green, but then maybe I decided, and this green is a global color now, I might decide, I think I need to change this, and in which case, this is a lot of different shapes and tints that I need to go into and manually select. But in this case, nothing. If I go Command A, nothing selects because I have everything locked. So I can't even select the art. All I have to do, though, is double click on the brand color here, which is green. And I want to try, in this case, I want to change the green color to more of a, I don't know, like a blue type of color. So we'll go to 85 here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of magenta. We'll add 10. Don't want that much yellow. We'll put 20, and I only want 5% for the color. And notice it's changing as I'm doing it over here. It's changing the solid fill colors of 100% value. It's changing the tints at whatever percentage I set those at. And now I'm done. So that's how easy it is to make those kind of universal art changes if you get in the habit of using global color. That's why it's super smart to use global color and make your life easier. Just make it a creative habit. You're going to start using it moving forward, and you're going to see how easy it is to work and make color changes and do color exploration, especially with the live color in Illustrator. It makes it even a better argument for using it. Now, there was a time where I talked the Adobe development team to make global colors by default. The color, when you add a color to swatches palette, it's automatic a global color. Now, if I go over here and I select or mix, that is, any color, let's say it's this kind of purplish color here. Get rid of the black. We'll add more like this. And I want to add it over here. I could just drag and drop it, and that's just not a global color. Or I can go, make sure I do this correctly. Okay, if I hold Option, Shift, and drag it in, that becomes a spot color. That's not what I want. If I Shift, drag it in, it becomes a spot color. Now I should have remembered and wrote this down. I can't remember it now. You can drag it in as a spot color or as a global color. Maybe it's Option Command. Nope, that's not it. Now I just changed black. There is a way to get it in there, trust me. I just can't remember because I forgot to add it to my notes. But in which case, if you just drag it in, you can just double click and click global. But if you hold a modifier key down, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what that is, and just drag that color swatch into the swatches panel, it'll automatically activate that global setting, and it'll automatically be global. So it'll save you just a fraction of a second. And I'm sorry, I should have wrote that in my notes. I thought I did, but I guess I didn't. But that's okay. Let's move on to the next thing, because the next thing is something I didn't even know about. And my friend Jean-Claude Tremblay out of Canada showed me this. And it's really cool. He showed me this about a year ago, and I'm just now getting around to showing it within People Love Process or any of my courses. So let's turn on this art. You might recognize this from a previous People Love movie. It's the same artwork, but we're going to colorize it different. We're going to use the same base color we used, but we're going to use and create tints. So what we need to do now, though, is we need to go to Window. We need to go down to Color, and we're going to click on Color Guide. That's going to bring up these controls here. And based off of whatever color you have selected, notice I have the purple selected, so it's selected that. It's going to allow us to create tints on whatever color we select. Now, we're going to go ahead and select this black, and so it's going to select this black color over here. If we select the swatch, it selects that swatch here, and notice this middle value is the swatch color we have selected, which is black. If you go to the right, this is a tint of gray that's dark, a little less dark, a little lighter, and even lighter still. So what is this? Well, if you go into the left direction, it's shades of that color. Because it's black, that doesn't really matter in this case. I just wanted to show you that. But we're going to be using this red. So I have this selected. We're going to go ahead and make it red. And notice here, this is the red we just added. And again, it's making tints of that going to the right. And what we can do is we can go to the option menu, and we can go on Color Guide Options, bring this up, and the steps it's creating is 40. Now, here's the thing. It's going to default to 4, but if we put in 3, and this is the part that kind of wigged me out a little bit until I understand the principle. When I put in 3, what that does is it creates 3 shades. This is 100% value. This is 75% value. This is 50% value. And this is 25% value. So that's using 3. If I punch in the number 9, like this, it's going to create 9 steps. So it goes from 100, and then it's going to go to 90%, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, and 10. And it's creating these tints for you. What we want to do is I don't want it to be 10% whole value. I want to go in 5% values because there's certain things I want to be very faint in terms of the color. So to do that, we'd have to punch in 19, and it would create all those steps here. Now, if I click OK, if I make this like wider, it'll be easier to see here, even though it covers some of the art. I'm just going to select these values, these tints, and I'm going to drag them over underneath the branded color and drop them there. Now notice what it's done now. It's brought all those in, and it shows you, and this is why I'm showing the swatches panel in this mode, list mode, because it shows you the percentages, and that's what we need to pay attention to. We can collapse that panel now. So we have the base color, which is our brand base color here. And all we're going to do is I want to go ahead and fill this swatch. Again, we don't need, we'll go ahead and fill all these white. We don't need a stroke on them. I'm going to select this, and I want this to be 70%. So, oops, make sure we're on fill. 70%, we'll fill it with that. I'm going to select this one. I want this one to be 50, so we'll go down to where 50 is. We'll scroll down a bit. The next one, I want it to be 40. So we'll fill that one with 40. We'll go here. This is where I want to use a 5% value, so we'll do 35 here. Then we'll go to the next one. I want this one to be 25. We'll fill that with 25. The next one will be 20. We'll click on that. The next one, I want 10%. This is going to be pretty faint. And then the lightest is going to be 5. But you can see this a lot faster in trying to hand create all of these by using the color guide panel like this. So I can select art like this, go to the eyedropper, everything in his face or his hair, the outside shape is going to be the dark color. We'll select the area that's going to make up his face, and his face is going to be the 10% value, so we'll color it that. We'll select the inner detail. That'll be the darkest value. His eyes are the only thing that aren't part of the brand color. Those will just be white, and we'll just go ahead and not have a stroke on those like that. His eyes will be the lightest, so that will be the 5%. I didn't want him stark white. It looks a little odd when you do that. Then I have detail in the beard or the hair of his beard. That's going to be 50%. So I'll go ahead and fill that. The shading on his face, this is going to be 25%. So we'll do that. Since his ear is kind of further back, it's going to be more in a shadow. So I'm going to make that a little darker by coloring it 40%. Then all these shapes that are the inner part of his beard, his beard highlights of sorts, if you want to think of it that way, those will be 35%. We'll go ahead and take his lip and his chin area, and we're going to make those 20%, so they're not quite as light as the rest of his forehead and his nose, etc. Since it's more in a shadow area, we'll select the background. The background's going to be the 70% darkness, and then this rim I have going around him, this will go ahead and make this 50% like that. So this is a case where we took the base color and we created a whole composition using tints of that base color. This is a one color design. So if you're printing in spot ink, for example, this would just be a one color design. So that's how you can use tints to do something like that. Let me show you another example. You might have a design like this. And in which case, if I scroll down, you can see all the colors we have that show up in this design: the red, the orange, the yellow, the green, the blue, teal color. We have a pink, and we have a purple color. So if we go ahead and open up our color guide again, I can go ahead and select, well, first, let's do this. Let's select all these colors and create a color group. And we're just going to select all those swatches, select this, and the color group, we're just going to go ahead and name this. We're going to be really, really creative here and just call it a tint group. Like that, and click OK. So all these are a tint group. I'll go over here. Now that I have this group selected, it's showing me all of these colors and all of the tints, and all I have to do is select all these tints here and just come over, and I'll just drop them below the other colors, and now we have all of those colors working in tints as well. Now I just realized something. I don't want it to be the 5. So we're going to go back to the color guide options. I want this to be steps at 10% only. And so in which case, instead of 19, we'll use 9, like that. And we'll click OK. That's what we want. Then I'll select the tints again, drag them over. We'll put them under the red. And that's what we wanted there. We can collapse this. So the reason why I did this is I want the innermost color to be the full value. In this case, if we select fill, it's the full value of blue. But the next one on blue, we want this to be 90%, like that. We'll select the next one. We want this one to be 80. Want this one to be 70. Want this one to be 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, and 10. Now, I'm going to do that for all of them, but I'm not going to sit here and do that again 5 or 6 more times because that would just be a little redundant. So like a good cooking show, this is what I would end up with by doing that same methodology for all the other colors. But you can see how quickly it goes. If you had to create all these tints manually by just creating it in the color palette, could you? Yeah, you could. It'd just take a lot longer. And by using the color guide, you can create tints. Now, I'm not even going over the shade values here. So if you select any color, let's say it's this branded blue up here, and I go ahead and select that, notice it creates tints, but going this way, it creates shading values. So if you wanted to create a shading value for a color in an illustration, this is one way that could help you determine what that color break is. So just wanted to show you that. I have a few more things to show you regarding global colors. These are all vector shapes I'm showing you here. It doesn't have to be. So if we go here and take a look at this design, this is vector. And then if I turn on my design, this is just more vector sitting on top of it. But I've masked in bitmap TIFFs and colorized them with the same blue color, different tints of blue, different opacities for those. And if I turn on all of this, you can see it creates a pretty authentic looking. This was actually, this type of approach was something I did for a client where they had tin signs printed, and so I weatherized it. All of this are just TIFF images. If I go to keyline view, you can see all those images. They're all the same size for this, but you can see how they've all been masked. So if I go ahead and lock all these layers except for this layer, and I move it, you can see it's just masked into a shape. And that's how I've composed everything. But with all of these masked into shape, I can just simply go to the global color because it's a global color and decide, you know what, I think this would look better if it was red rather than blue. So I could punch this in 7. With live color, you're going to see it changing as we punch it in like that. And then I think a little more black, 25, and boom, we're all done. It applies whether the color is applied to vector objects, whether the color is applied in this case to bitmap TIFF images or textures that you place in. It's going to change everything universally and make it go a whole lot faster. So I wanted to show you that. Let's take a look at another file. This one's very complex. If you look at my layers, you can see I have all kinds of layers. And this is just so I can isolate, maybe it's the face. I can turn that on and off. In this case, I have this flower shape here. So if I go ahead and zoom in on this flower and I decide I want to change this lighter blue in this. Well, one, you need to get in the habit of organizing your files in layers. But I've used this blue elsewhere in the design. Trying to isolate every iteration of that color in a complex illustration like this would take way too long, and it's useless. So it's easier to just focus on the colors. In this case, just to simplify my explanation here, I have the colors isolated here. All these blues and the shading value down here, which I use to create the vine and the little shadows on the flower elements and under this like kelp thing coming up out of here, are all here. And I want to change this light blue. And I want to change this light blue to an even lighter hue. So if I go ahead and double click on this, I can just go directly into this color. And right now you can see what the color is. And I want to change this. I think it has too much blue in it. So I'm going to change this to 35. I'm going to knock this value in half. And you can see it's already changing because of light color here. And I think that looks even better. And you can see it applied to this plant as well using the same color. That's great. Now, if I decide I want to keep on changing it, let's go ahead and zoom out so you can see it changing on everything. If I go here and I double click back on this, maybe I might decide it'd even look better if it's a different type of value. It's not a blue. Maybe it's more of a light kind of green. We can punch in 20 here, get rid of no warm value whatsoever. We'll punch in 75 here like that. And you can see it's already changed in here. It's changed in here. In any other area, if I use that color anywhere else, it would change there as well. And this is why having good creative habits is important. Obviously, organizing your layers is a big part of it. Always using global colors is going to help you to manage your color, help with your exploration, help with edits. If a client doesn't like a certain color, you don't have to go hunting for it. You can track it down and modify it really easy. So I'd like to thank my Canadian friend in the Great White North of Canada, Jean-Claude Tremblay, who several years back showed me more about the color guide method. It took me way too long to put this in some content and share with others. Not only is his instruction helpful, but it's done in a fancy French accent as well, which sounds far more sophisticated than I do. The next time you need to create new colors, make sure to go global. Make it a new creative habit you can count on moving forward. It'll make your life easier. And when a tint is needed, you'll be ready to rock and roll. Remember, exercise files are always available via the link in the movie's description. Or if you become a member of this channel, you can get access to all the perks and free resources for members only. Thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.